The quest for expanded definitions to freedom and the rising desire for madness to be accommodated in this generation is only a point of the fact that accountability is eroding this generation as swiftly as it can. This is Talk is Cheap. Welcome. Precious Eda is my name. Well, today I'll be talking about accountability and how its implication on personal development and leadership. Accountability, its implication on personal development and leadership. Now, what does accountability mean? Accountability simply talks about the fact of being answerable to someone or an institution or a system. The fact of being answerable, the ability to be held responsible for actions and inactions. That's accountability. When someone is held accountable, when someone is answerable, you're not the Lord of yourself. You're not the being of yourself. You are answerable to someone and to something. You are being accountable. You know, the ability to exercise self-restraint on the basis of someone holding you to a high moral standard. That's accountability. That's accountability. So why should people be accountable? Why should people be accountable? The first reason is that it helps us overcome our weaknesses, our personal weaknesses. It helps us overcome our personal weaknesses. And so we need to be accountable. When you are accountable, when you know that you are answerable to someone when you do wrong, you would check yourself. You would always check yourself. And that's how it works in government. When the systems of government are set up in a way that institutions are accountable to each other, every weakness in every institution will be mindful of its expression. So when people and institutions or systems want to express weaknesses, they know that they are going to be held accountable. They know that they are answerable to someone else or to some other institution or to some other system. So it puts personal weakness. Being accountable also helps us to maintain some moral standards in society and for our personal lives. It helps us maintain some moral standards. And you know, when someone or when people are not accountable to each other, when there is no accountability, when nobody can be held responsible for his actions and inactions, morality loses its stance. There will be no basis of morality because everyone is free to do whatever pleases him. Everyone is free to do anything it likes. Values will erode. Values will die off and just disappear. So people will just do everything that they like because they're not going to be held accountable. And that's a challenge for this generation because what we see today is everyone wants to do what he feels like doing. Everyone wants to do what he feels like doing. And you cannot do everything you feel like doing. You cannot be everything you feel like being because sometimes the things you feel like doing are not compatible with the moral codes of society. Sometimes the things you feel like being and not compatible with the established moral standards of society. So the only option you have is to change the moral standards. And how do you change the moral standards? It's by insisting on your irresponsible attitude. When you insist on irresponsibility and not being accountable, you change moral standards. And that's what is happening in this generation. It's something we must stop. We must insist on accountability. Accountability helps us to enforce integrity. It helps us to enforce integrity. When someone knows that he's going to be held accountable for his actions, for his promises, for the words he has spoken, that person will ensure to keep his word. That person will try as much as possible to keep his word. If politicians know that they're going to be held responsible for the promises they make when trying to get into office, it will help them keep their promises when they get into office and not just wish away the promises when they get into office. So accountability helps us enforce integrity in society and in a personal life. Now, when there is absence of accountability, what happens? When there is absence of accountability, what happens? There will be a rise in exemptions and exceptions. Rise in exemptions and exceptions. And so suddenly everybody knows what a man is, but then without accountability, someone just wakes up in the morning and says, well, I feel like a woman, and then you should exempt me from being a man because he's a man who says he feels like a woman, he needs to be exempted from being a man, or there should be some exceptions in his case because he feels like that. It becomes, because there's lack of accountability, there's lack of responsibility. People always want to be exempted because they always want to do what they feel like doing. So they always exempt. They look for exemptions. They look for exceptions to the general rule. The general rule is that a man is an adult male. But somebody says he needs an exception because he feels like, I feel like a woman, but I'm a man. I feel like a woman. So please exempt me from being called a man. Address me as a woman. But that's the moral understand that's how society is built on. We're built on saying that men are men and women are women, and a man is an adult male and woman is an adult female with reproductive system. But someone who's an adult male with no reproductive system says, I feel like being called a woman, and so you should exempt me from the general rule. It's because accountability is lacking. Everyone knows the lying is bad. But if someone lies because he thinks it will foster a greater good, someone lies because he thinks it will foster a greater good, is in a position to say the truth, but then he lies. Lying is bad. Everyone knows that lying is bad, but then someone, because he feels that there's a greater good to be protected, therefore he is justified to lie. He creates an exemption, an exception to himself. Is because there's lack of accountability, there's lack of responsibility, and so it becomes something that we must deal with in society. The absence of accountability enthrones tyranny, it enthrones autocracy, it enthrones anarchy. When people, especially political leadership, when political leadership sees itself as unanswerable to any other institution, when the executive, for instance, in a democratic situation, when the executive is not answerable to anyone, is not answerable to the other institutions of government, it turns to a tyranny, it turns to an autocracy, and that's like, it's basic government we learned in school. It's basic government. What are the fundamental characteristics of a regime that is autocratic, that is tyrannical? There is no one that the leader is answerable to. When the leader is the all in all, the leader is he is the all powerful, and there is no system put in place to check the leader. There comes a time when tyranny enforces itself. People become tyrannical, people become autocratic. We lose every sense of accountability. No checks, no balance. That's what happens when accountability is lacking in a society, in a personal life. When you as a person, you have no system of accountability standing over your life. You have no system of responsibility standing over your life. Many young people of this generation are no longer accountable to their parents. And I blame the parents for that. Many young people don't want to be accountable to parents. They just want to live life the way they feel like living life. Many young people don't want to be accountable to institutions of government. They just want to live life the way they feel like living life. Not everything you feel like doing is good for you and for society. Some things might feel good at the moment, but the repercussions for future generations is deadly. It is really deadly. And that's why we have laws. But when people feel that, some of these laws are not so good because it doesn't benefit or it doesn't foster my feelings. I feel like doing this, I feel like doing that. If you do everything you feel like doing, you will cause anarchy in society, you will cause tyranny in society. And that's why we have shootings everywhere, we have killings everywhere, we have madness everywhere, because everyone feels like doing what they feel like doing. Because when people lose hope in political systems, for instance, when people lose hope in political systems and they just do what they feel like doing, maybe they lose hope in justice systems and they feel like, I enforce the justice the way I feel like enforcing it. What would happen if everyone begins to enforce justice the way that they want justice to be enforced for themselves when they have been wronged? We would have tyranny, we would have anarchy. All hell will be let loose. So accountability is a core that holds society and our personal lives together. If you lose accountability, you must have someone, you must have a system that you are accountable to. If you lose accountability, you've lost a core that holds the system, that holds your personality together, And I encourage you, do not find a way to erode accountability based on the way you feel or based on your present circumstances. Ensure that there is a system that you are accountable to, that can hold you responsible. That will help you check your ego, it will check your excesses, it will check your weaknesses, and it will make you a better person and make your system a better person. Precious said, as my name, Talk is Cheap. Do not forget to like the channel, subscribe, share this video with someone. God bless you. Until next time. Ciao.